2 months ago or so, around Pesach and Easter time, I was invited to be on Metro Morning on the radio program CBC. And I was lucky in that my partner for that conversation was the Reverend Dr. Anthony Bailey. I invite him to join the screen now. We did not know one another yet. In fact, I didn't know anything about him. It was a spontaneous, and the invitation came quickly. And in just those few moments together we had on the radio waves, maybe 12 minutes or something, I could tell that this was a leader of our time and someone that I wanted to get to know better, someone who had life wisdom, someone who had acquired textual wisdom. And so it's really our delight to welcome you to join us at Holy Blossom Temple tonight, Reverend Bailey. I'll say just a few words.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Just a few words from your biography, and it's impressive, so I urge everyone to read it in full. The Reverend Dr. Anthony Bailey serves the Parkdale United Church of Ottawa. His academic degrees come in social work and theology, philosophy of religion and ethics and culture. He is training in hospital ministry and has taught pastoral counseling at the McGill University Joint Theological Colleges and at the Theological College of the University of the West Indies. And I could go on and on. It is an impressive biography, all of your professional accomplishments and your academic accolades. But tonight, tell us something of the biography that you carry with you every day that we might not be able to read about on the page.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and Shabbat Shalom to all of your congregation. Thank you for this honor of joining you here. It's my privilege. I think it's important to start with my entrance into Canada. I'm originally from Barbados, and we moved to Canada, to Montreal, and in an apartment sort of complex that was located in the educational territory of a larger Jewish community, Côte Saint-Luc. Any of your readers or listeners know that place. And so I went to Merton School, that later became a Talmud Torah, and also to Wager High School. And the population of the school was about 95% Jewish. So I was immersed in both Canadian new life in Canada, as well as the Jewish community. And so I had many friends, Jewish friends, and I had the opportunity and the privilege of joining them for Bar Mitzvah and for Pesach, and for having all kinds of opportunities to be at Seder and so forth. So that was part of my introduction. And it's been an important part of understanding how communities of faith, but also communities that have been targeted. So there's a certain solidarity that comes also with that experience. And I should tell you that at one point, I even graduated to becoming a Shabbat Goy. So I used to deliver papers, and instructions were left for me to do certain things, turn on electronics in the houses and so forth. And I thought that was quite intriguing.
Wow, with our growing friendship, I'm learning new things about you every time. That's wonderful. I have so many questions for you about that upbringing in that Jewish neighborhood, but we have more important things to talk about tonight. So you've just come straight from Parliament Hill. You're in your home now in Ottawa. You were invited to address the nation, and the Prime Minister himself was there to hear your words. So please tell us, Reverend, what did you speak of tonight? It's so hard to know what to say, and there's so much to say. If you could give us a hint of what you think is the essential message today.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important to privilege the pathos and the pain of racialized Black people at this time, and also to acknowledge the allyship as well. And so one of the things that I was talking about is, you know, there's a certain politician who recently said that systemic racism is not a problem in Canada, that's a US thing, and then later corrected themselves. But that's a prevalent notion that we're not as bad as the United States. And what I did tonight is to remind people of the history of Canada, about the way in which we have treated Indigenous people from the very beginning, the settler community, about the way in which we treated the Chinese community after they finished building the railroad, and then the Chinese tax. But also what a lot of people may not know is that the Sir Wilfrid Laurier's government in 1911 passed an order in council 1234 banning the immigration of Black people. They did not want Black people to come. And we see over and over this systemic exclusion of certain people. I also mentioned about the Jewish refugees, the 967 Jewish refugees that came to the shores of Canada on the MS St. Louis and were turned away. And over 250, I believe, ended up in the gas chambers. So I speak about the systemic racism that has been part of our history, but also continues to even this day. There are disproportional effects and outcomes that come for racialized Black people in education, in housing, in the criminal justice system, in health determinants. I myself have experienced that personally. The murder of my brother and I, we were in Montreal. We were attacked by those who were avowed racists, hated Black people, killed my brother. He bled to death in my arms and tried to kill me also, just because of the color of my skin. So systemic racism has very personal applications and personal tragedies. And so I talked about that. But I also spoke about love. And I spoke about the fact that we need to find a more compelling story than hatred. And if you don't mind, I'd like to share briefly that story. When I was living and working in Kenya, I learned this story about a wise man named Madupe. And Madupe lived among the people, and they would farm, and every season there would be a flood, and so they built a dam to protect them. Madupe went to live high in the mountains, and he decided that he would welcome people with wisdom. They would come and ask for help, adjudication of problems, and so forth, but he lived up there by himself. One day, the people looked up, and Madupe's hut was on fire. It was burning, completely consumed, and they were so upset and so worried about him that everybody, every man, woman, child, even the lame, were carried up there to find out what was going on because they loved Madupe so much. And as they reached the top of the hill, they heard a loud crash, and the dam had broken, and the water was rushing down, and it consumed the entire village. Had they not left their places of abode, they would have all been killed. And so it was because they loved Madupe, and Madupe loved them, that saved them. And what I claim is that love is what is going to save us. Love, a profound, compelling love, a love that is provocative, a love that decenters hate, a love that brings us together in flourishing and provokes disturbance of the way things are, and opens up space, creates space for us to be just and loving and contributing to human flourishing.
Amen to that. Reverend Bailey, what was your brother's name?
His name was John.
With your permission, we can include him in our final prayer of the evening, a memorial prayer.
I appreciate that. And I should let you know that just before coming on, I spoke with a friend who goes to Maksachai synagogue here, Andrew Fainer. And he was a year ahead of me in the same school, and he was in the same class as my brother. And he was sharing some memories about him. So that was very touching today.
His memory should be for blessing. You spoke of love. There are many good people who are asking simply and innocently, what can we do? And I know just the question can be somehow, I don't know if offensive is too strong a word, but agitating, that we should know what to do. But the truth is, we don't know what to do. Many do not know where to begin, and yet we do want to be part of the solution to bring greater racial justice to this good country. Yeah. So how can you teach us tonight? We're listening very carefully.
Well, thank you. And I'm also opening to learning. I think it has to do with, it begins with humility. Humility enables us to recognize what we do not know and to stop pretending that we know everything, stop pretending that we're strong, we're independent, we don't need. And humility says, I'm open to being taught. And so part of the contribution that I try to make is to tell people to listen and observe the things that you don't normally observe. And there's a connectional place that we can begin. All of us know hurt and pain. All of us has suffered grief in some way. And if we can maximize and draw on that and to say, okay, how is it that a whole group of people, of racialized Black people, are always talking about a similar reality of being victimized in so very many ways? And that causes pain, it causes enduring trauma. And I think there's a lot of connectional space, I think, between people of African descent about racialized Black people and the Jewish people have known something of oppression, knows something of stigmatizing and so forth. And we have to do a better job, I think, even as communities to support each other. I draw, interesting you mentioning that, I think that humility, I'll share a funny little story, is that I've been telling people, I've been asking, how do I talk to my children? How do I understand better this notion of white privilege and so forth? And I've been recommending a book by Robin DiAngelo called White Fragility. And a few people contacted me today and said that there's such a back order on it now that you should probably take credit for getting some of the royalties because they're sold out. But it's a wonderful book. Robin DiAngelo talks about her own journey from white supremacy, from not seeing the reality of racialized Black people and not seeing her own white privilege, to the journey to being able to discover that, and invites others to join on the journey as well.
Thank you for that instruction. And also, of course, we want to thank you for including some of Canadian Jewish history when you were speaking truth to power today about the history of racism in this good country. So you are a faith leader, you're a faith educator. What role does faith play in your justice work?
That's a wonderful question. It is pivotal. It's actually the baseline and the generative energy that I receive. It is my belief in God, in Hashem, who is all powerful and gives might and gives wisdom and strength, but also brings solace. One of the Psalms that I've been going to in the Tehillim is 142. Where it says, I pour out my complaint before him, I tell my trouble, when my spirit is faint, you know the way. I cry to you, O Lord, Adonai. I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. And so I find the words and the emotions that are found in the Tehillim help me also. And so that's one of the ways in which my faith not only strengthens me when I feel burdened, but also enables me to be clear-headed as I consult with others, to be able to provide a kind of wisdom that insinuates itself into the crevices of people's hard-heartedness and racism and anti-Semitism, that enables to break open, even just a little bit, a light that can shine enlightenment and can produce transformation. I've seen it. I do anti-Black racism training in schools for the new police recruits here in Ottawa, in federal government departments, and certainly not everybody is at the place where they're ready to accept and to change their worldview. But there are some who come and speak to me afterwards and says, I never knew and I want to know more. And I tell them that what gives me the strength is to continue trusting God, trusting the power that in my tradition that Jesus has demonstrated to us, so that I can continue that important work.
And do you have a charge for us? Is there a call to action, even if the action is first and foremost listening? You have many open ears and open hearts tonight within the Jewish community. What is your call? What is your charge to us?
Yeah. I urge you as my brothers and sisters to have a humility to learn, to make intentional connections with racialized Black people, to begin to understand, not only to read the literature and so forth, and even the young people, they like perhaps the hip hop music and so forth, that not understand some of the pathos from which that comes, but also to get to know people, to go beyond your comfort level and to say, let's have a conversation. Let's find a way where we can talk with each other. We can share pain together. We can celebrate together, come into each other's spheres of celebration and festivals and help one another. One of the things that I draw strength from, a portion in the Tanakh, comes from Isaiah. And it talks about the way in which Adonai loves all nations, and the fact that there is a sense in which asks the Israelites to be open to others, to see others. And so you hear the often refrain in the Tanakh about all the peoples of the earth, all the nations. Repeated. It's a refrain that is repeated over and over. And even sometimes, it's even surprising, you look at the book of Amos, and Amos talks about, are not you Israelites the same to me as the Cushites? Talks about, and also, did I not bring Israel up from Egypt as the Philistines from Caphtor and Arameans from Kir? Again, talks about the rescuing way. And this has been from the very beginning. You and I talked about this at Pesach, the Erev Rav in Shemot. You have the Exodus and this Erev Rav, this mixed multitude of Gentiles and others who joined with the Exodus, were there in the journey and there in the wilderness. They were the ones who also participated in manna and salah. They joined together. Now, there are probably some disturbances depending how it's interpreted, but I think from the very beginning, there's been this opportunity, this generosity of God, this generosity of Adonai to welcome not only the Israelites, but the Gentiles also, the Goyim, and to see some way of forging a humanity that was more just. I love Micah, asot mishpat. You must do justice, make justice. And I believe that is one of the ways in which we can come together in common cause.
It is inspiring to hear your Hebrew, I have to say. It's a reminder that we are not only united in faith, but we're also united in sacred text and scripture, which is the bedrock, right? Which is the foundation on which we walk. That's how we find our footing. That's how we find our way through the world. Yes. So thank you for teaching the Torah that is resounding for you these days. I'm afraid our time is far too short. Really, I wish I could invite you to my Shabbat dinner table. I'm in my dining room right now. Wouldn't it be great if you could just leap through the screen and join my family and me?
I love Shabbat dinners.
Well, one day, God willing, one day we'll be able to host you at our table. I look forward to that, you and your family together. In the meantime, we want to thank you for your insight. We want to pray that God will continue to fill your hands with blessings. We want to ask that God will give you courage. We want to ask that God will continue to watch over your brother's neshama, your brother's soul. May he rest in peace. And we're just so grateful to you. You are a leading voice in the nation, and I'm so glad to know that more than just 12 minutes on the radio, you got to address the nation today, and that the Prime Minister was there to be your witness to your truth and to your wisdom. God bless you.
Thank you for the generosity of the invitation.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.